الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الواحد الأحد الفرد الصمد الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على رسوله محمد الطيبين الطاهرين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا أبا الأئمة الهادين المهديين، السلام عليك يا صريع الدمعة الساكبة، السلام عليك يا صاحب المصيبة الراتبة، السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى أخيك أبي الفضل العباس وعلى أختك العقيلة زينب ورحمة الله وبركاته. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. صدق الله العلي العظيم وصدق رسوله الكريم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. I begin in the name of Allah, the Beneficent and the Merciful. All praise is due to Allah, who has bestowed upon us the great gifts. وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. Indeed, if you count the ni'am, the blessings of Allah, He will never be able to count them. And I thank Allah for the hidayah of Ahlul Bayt and the belief in their succession of Rasulullah sallallahu wa sallam alayhi. And I thank Allah for Muharram, for it wasn't for Muharram, the religion of Rasulullah would not be known as the way we know it. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yesterday we talked about, in the first lecture, we talked about the different methods that Allah tries to communicate to us the important role that we all have to play. And we discussed that role is the khilafah. As a human being, you are a khalifa of Allah. Allah said, as we mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذ قال ربك للملائكة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. When Allah said to the angels, I will place a successor, a vicegerent, a representative on earth. And we discussed how we are all the representatives of Allah. And we discussed the importance of history as well, the other technique that Quran used, stories. And we discussed how we relate to the story of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. We relate to their heroes, we relate to their characteristics, to the characters of that epic that happened on the 61st year of Hijrah. The main purpose, one of the main purposes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent His messengers is for reform. And this ayah is mainly about reform. Allah says in this ayah, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah does not change the conditions, the affair of people until they change that which is within themselves. And this is a very, very important concept in the Islamic teaching, in the Quranic teaching. And it's not peculiar to the school of Ahlul Bayt. All Muslims or schools of thought in Islam believe in this principle, that if we want to change our conditions, if we want to change our environment, we have to change ourselves. Al-Allama Tabatabai rahmatullahi alayhi in his book Al-Mizan fi Tafsir al-Quran mentions a correlation, he said, a relationship between the external conditions, as he calls it, the condition of a society, the condition of the ummah, and the spiritual status of that ummah. And he mentions how when one increases, the other will increase as well. When we are more spiritual, when we are more obedient, when we are more observant to the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the principle of Quran, to the teachings of Ahlul Bayt, when we will become more prosperous, more successful. And it is, the Allama Tabatabai mentions it very beautifully. He said, this is a decree. Allah has decreed, as we call it, sunnah. Yes, sunnatullah allati khalat fil ladina min qablikum. The rule of Allah, the law of Allah, that governs all the world. Now, if you read the ayah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ. It didn't say, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ the conditions of Muslims. Allah does not change the affair of Muslims, the affair of obedience. No. The ayah said, بِقَوْمٍ. This rule is general. It's a general rule that applies to any ummah on earth. When Al-Allama Tabatabai says, when we are as individuals in our spiritual status, when we are as individuals become moral representatives in our society. That's what we discussed yesterday, yes? What is a Khalifa? What is a Khalifa? We said there are so many creatures of Allah, mashallah, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of species that Allah has created. He singled out only us, human beings, to be a Khalifa. What does that mean? We have a moral and ethical responsibility. When you wake up in the morning, imagine yourself an ambassador, a representative of a great governor, Barack Obama, yes? You'll see that the ambassador of the United States is the most valued, the most respected in the entire diplomatic world. Yeah? Why? Because he represents a superpower. That's who we are. That's who you are. Wallahi, that's who we are. We represent Allah. Al-Hadith al-Qudsi says, عبدي أطعني تكن مثلي تقل للشيء كن فيكون. Oh my slave, عبدي أطعني, follow me. Allah says, you will be like me. When you say to something be, it will be. And we have stories as well. We have stories when you hear of those karamas, of karamat, mu'jizat, of the prophets, the great prophets, of Ahlul Bayt, of even some very highly spiritual, obedient people. And you hear of what has happened, how they broke some laws. Yeah, we witnessed it, all of us.
Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad salawat.
When we witnessed it, all of us, it is because those people have reached a particular spiritual status. It is spirituality. It is what in your heart that drives you and I to do everything that we do. When you wake up in the morning, you believe in something, right? You believe in supporting your family. That's why you go to work. You have yaqeen in that, right? You have yaqeen. What is yaqeen? A firm belief that when you go to work, you will be paid and you will be able to support and sustain your family, right? When you and I, brothers and sisters, have a belief a firm belief that we are a representatives of Allah. We are representatives of Allah. Whether we accept it or not, it has been bestowed upon us. It's a privilege that has been given to all of us. However, with it, Allah has given us a choice. A choice. You either act accordingly. You either become a Khalifa. Right? When you see someone is a representative, what do? They act accordingly. They act according to whom? To the representative. Right? To that highest moral authority that they are representing. That's what we are. That's why when you see Ahlul Bayt, there are some historians say there is some exaggeration about Ali ibn Abi Talib. This is a strange phenomenon. That's what some historians say. How could a human being, one human being, have so many different sects, have so many different schools of thought, have so many different individuals who fought each other throughout history? We talked about this one during the Milad of Ali ibn Abi Talib. How could this individual, how could this individual be what he has been, or what he had been? How could he? How could he be a valiant warrior during the day at Siffin? What the historical books, and I'm talking about the Sunni school of thought, Ali ibn Abi Talib announced 500 times, Allahu Akbar. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And with each Allahu Akbar, he was killing an enemy of Allah. And then come at night, and you see Ali ibn Abi Talib standing in his mihrab, crying to Allah like the weakest human being on earth. Allahumma ghfir liya dhunub allati tahtu kulli islam. Oh Allah, forgive my sins. One of the ulama says, if Ali ibn Abi Talib stands in the middle of the night and says, oh Allah, forgive my sins, what should we do? Wallahi, I ask myself sometimes, what should I be doing if Ali ibn Abi Talib does that? Ali ibn al-Hussein holds to the curtain of Kaaba, to Astar al-Kaaba, and cries for Allah until he falls down. Al-Farazdaq comes to him and he says to him, Ya ibn Rasulullah, Anta ibn Rasulullah, you are the grandson of Rasulullah. Abik al-Hussein, you have witnessed Karbala. He said to him, Wayhak, laysa li ahadin qarabatin ma'allah. No one is Allah's relative. None of us is Allah's relatives. We all have a responsibility. So when you go back to Ali ibn Abi Talib and you say, how could Ali ibn Abi Talib do that? During the day, he's a valiant warrior. At night, he's a modest slave to Allah. And he comes back with this beautiful dua. Wallah, it's a symphony when you read it. Does anybody like classical music? Does anybody like classical? This is the classical music at its best when you read dua Kamil. Wallah, he just takes you from one world. He drags you and he puts you in a completely different world. You talk about spiritual uplifting. Yeah, spiritual uplifting. Just read dua Kamil and observe and reflect on its meanings. Wallahi, it just takes you from a world to a world. So when you ask yourself, how could Ali ibn Abi Talib do that? Well, because he was acting as a representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, for us to change our societies, for us to change our affairs, Al-Quran says that we have to change ourselves. وَأَنْ لَوْ اسْتَقَامُوا عَلَى الطَّرِيقَةِ لَأَغْدَقْنَاهُمْ لأسقيناهم ماء غدقا لأنزلنا عليهم بركات من السماء والأرض. Yes, if they follow the straight path, we will give them the blessings of heavens and earth. Why? Is this some religious talk? No. Look at the principles of Islam, for example. Justice is the first one. Yes? لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ. We have sent our messengers and our prophets, and the way it is phrased in Quran, the purpose, lam, ta'leel they say, i.e. the cause of sending our prophets is to what? لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ. So that people are just. When there is justice in a society, what happens? Wealth is spread evenly. The weaker is supported by the stronger. Right? One principle. Yeah. When you adhere to the principles of Islam, what does it ask you? Maintain the kingship. Arham. Silatul Rahim. Be good to whom? To your neighbors. Up to the 7th neighbor. Some narrations say up to the 40th neighbor. This is a radius, by the way, starting from your home. It doesn't say this neighbor is a Christian or a Muslim or a believer or a non-believer. No, any neighbor. Any neighbor. This is the universal message of Islam. What? Family. You are good to your family. Rasulullah said, رِفْقًا بِالْقَوَارِيرِ. He gave the analogy of woman as a vase. Look after it. Just hold it very, very carefully. Relationship with your parents. Right? رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيَّ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. Yes? Oh Allah, forgive myself and my parents. It just creates that beautiful harmony. And when that harmony is created, what happens? The entire society flourishes. It flourishes when everyone receives a level of happiness, when we are all working towards a particular cause. What do? We become an unstoppable force. That's why there were handful in Mecca that migrated to Medina, and they became only 300. They were able to conquer the world. This is not a fairy tale, brothers and sisters. It's a true story called, the hero of that story called Muhammad ibn Rasulullah ibn Abdullah. So when you have these 300 odd people with that absolutely firm belief, being able to conquer the world, and we'll inshallah talk on the 6th night how 72 other firm believers were able to create an epic that continued perpetually throughout the human history. We'll talk about them inshallah, those companions of Al-Hussein on the 6th night. But we're going back to the purpose of those messengers. As I first initially mentioned, the main purpose is to reform the society. So when Allah said Allah does not change the affair of people until they change themselves, how could that happen without someone telling us how do we change ourselves? Yeah? What is right and wrong? If you listen to the atheists, and there are so many media outlets support their point of view these days. If you listen to them, they say, I can make up what's right and what's wrong. I can make it up. So killing someone, is that right or wrong? No, that's wrong. Well, in my opinion, for example, I'd say killing someone is alright. That's, my society taught me that. I can hide the hurt behind some cultural background somewhere and say I come from such and such land and we are still cannibals, we still eat humans, for example. Who are you to say to me that what I'm doing is wrong? According to your argument, I decide what is right and what is wrong. He said, no, the society. What society? We discussed yesterday the writer, the nephew of Freud. I still can't remember the name, subhanAllah. He wrote a book called Propaganda. If anybody can just Google that book. He wrote it in the 30s, and he said, I can change a society's thinking, liking, selection of people, selection of heroes in 20 old days. I could just change that. There are methods, there are tools that I could employ to change that. So when I ask who should I follow so I can change myself so that my society can change, Allah says, I sent you a representative, a reformer. Started with all the prophets and then ended with Rasulullah and then his progeny Israel. Salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, Ja'far al-Tayyar, we call him. We'll talk about Al-Abi Talib inshallah on the 5th night. It's the night of Muslim ibn Aqil, salamullahi alayhi. Those Al-Abi Talib, you know, they have a strange relationships with Ahlul Bayt. And they have, you know, they are not ma'sooms, they are not infallibles, but throughout their history they have just been a marvelous individuals. Each and every single one of them alive. Ja'far al-Tayyar, he was a martyr, as we call him, Dhul Janahayn. Yes, Ja'far al-Tayyar, Rasulullah said, يَطِيرُ فِي الْجَنَّةِ بِجَنَاحَيْن. He flies in heaven with 2 wings. So not he was a valiant warrior in Ghazwa Tabuk or Mu'tah, I can't remember. Mu'tah, yes, in Mu'tah. Ja'far al-Tayyar, when he was representing the Muslims in Abyssinia, he was able to summarize the entire Islamic message in a few lines. He said to him, O king, he was talking to the Abyssinian king, O king, we were a people of ignorance. كنا قوما أهل جاهل. نحن قوم أهل جاهلية. نعبد الأصنام. ونأكل الميتة. ونقطع الأرحام. ونسيء الجوار. ويأكل القوي منا الضعيف. O king of Abyssinia, we are a people of ignorance. We talked about this in one majlis. We said the people of ignorance. Here, what Quran refers to, what Ja'far al-Tayyar is referring to, is not people who are illiterate. Yes, most Arabian Arabs were illiterate at the time. Only few of them could write and read. But he was talking about ignorance characteristics. A situation of ignorance. They used to love their tribes. They used to love their horses. They had a pride. And their pride was above everything else, above their morality, above their relationships with everyone else. It was that pride that was one of the characteristics of that ignorance. We'll talk about this ignorance in more detail, inshallah. It's a very interesting topic that we'll have to, inshallah, delve into it one day. We don't have time for this. I'm just going to continue very quickly. I won't have time. So he says to him, Ja'far al-Tayyar, to the king of Abyssinia, O king of Abyssinia, we are a people of ignorance. We worship, us and our fathers, we worship idols. Yeah? We sever kingship, naqta'u al-arham, na'kul al-meeta, we eat the dead meat of dead animals. We abuse our neighbors, and the strong ones exploit the weak ones. Then came to us one who is amongst us, who is known to us with his trustworthiness, truthfulness, and lineage. Look at this. You know, this guy is the best diplomat that you could send to any country. Wallahi. The words he chose are very, very careful. Very careful. He was talking to a king of Abyssinia, and at that time, Abyssinia was a strong power. It was competing with the Persian Empire over the rule of Yemen. So you can imagine the Persian Empire at that time, it was the superpower of the world. It was competing with the Roman Empire, yes? And this country, Abyssinia, a very strong nation in Africa, it was competing with whom? With Persia, the great Persia. Yeah? So this Ja'far al-Tayyar wasn't talking to any human being. He was talking to a king, a very powerful king. So he said to him, we know his lineage. Why? Because lineage is very important to us. And you will see on the 10th day of Muharram, Al-Hussein ibn Ali used this lineage line because it's important. When you know someone, you know his lineage, you know his family, you know his history, it makes a difference than when someone, there are Khalifas that we have now, Khalifas in our history, in the Umayyad history. Their mothers had the red flag on top of their houses. What does the red flag mean in the culture of Arabia? It's a brothel, brothers and sisters. With all due respect, I should not say this on the minbar, but wallahi, when I read the Muslim history, there are episodes of our history that is shameful. Shameful. Our Khalifa, his mother has a flag. And then his father, the father of Khalifa, his son is an illegitimate son, he just brings him in. Ziyad, the father of Ubaydillah, that's the lineage. That's the lineage that fought Abi Abdullah al-Hussein on the 10th of Muharram. And you have the lineage of whom? Of Al-Hussein ibn Ali. And he says to him, O king, then we believed in him. And he commanded us to denounce what we and our fathers used to worship from Al-Asnam, of Al-Asnam. And he commanded us to maintain our kingship, to look after our neighbors, and to cease committing al-fawahish, lewdness, and to stop the bloodshed and the atrocities, because they used to fight each other as tribes. Here, it was a total reform of an entire society. It wasn't, that's why we always say, it was not the Arabs only. It wasn't the Arabs that maintained this Islamic civilization that continued for about 13 or 1200 years until the fall of the Ottoman Empire. It was Islam. It was that reform. It was that message that penetrated people's hearts. People after this, after the death of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a lot of them were firm believers in the message of Rasulullah. They wanted to fight for Islam. They wanted to have jihad. Yes, they wanted to sacrifice their wealth, their lives for the sake of Islam. How did they do that? Muslims conquered most of the earth. They used to go to the edges of the Islamic empire. Very sincere people. Very sincere people. They had to go to the edges of the Islamic empire, to the corners of the Muslim empire, and go and fight the Chinese or the Indians or the Uzbeks or the Spaniards or some nation, just because they wanted to do jihad. They had very strong faith. They wanted to use it. It was misused, unfortunately, by the Umayyads and the rest of them. The Umayyads used that faith, used that power, they used that energy, or misused it, I should say. And they kept assembling armies and sending them to the worlds. And they were saying to them, this is the flag of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, go and conquer. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. And you will see there's a lot of faith these days is being misused as well. Now this Al-Qaeda, a lot of people who are following them, if you read some of the biographies, some of the those individuals, you will see that they're just ignorant bunch of people. They have a strong faith, they want to use it. A lot of them have a very corrupt background, and all of a sudden someone comes to them and says, here you go, I opened a door for you back to Islam. Just go and terrorize other people. It was misused. So that's when the second reformer of Islam had to rise. And Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. He had to say to Muslims, you don't have to go to the corners of the Islamic world to do jihad. No. You can do jihad against a tyrant, an oppressor, against Bani Umayyah. This notion of revolution, brothers and sisters, was alien to the Arabs. We mentioned this before. Arabs were tribal societies, they had their allegiance to their tribe, then they were united into one state, the Islamic State, now they have their allegiance to the states. They don't understand what revolution, because when they were tribal men, and they continue to be tribal men even after the rise of Islam, if a tribal leader is not needed, they will just change him. It was an egalitarian society, if you really look at it, right? There's no need for a revolution until there was a despot leader, a khalifa, a dictator really, sitting in Damascus. That's when Imam Hussein said to them, you have to understand there is something called thawra, revolution, uprising. And this revolution has to come internally. We have to reform, hence the ayah, we have to reform our society. We can't just continue invading our other lands and conquering other people. We have to reform ourselves. We are being corrupt. The wealth of Muslims was a huge wealth. One of the companions of Rasulullah, his name is Bisr ibn Abi Arta'a. He was the governor of Bahrain. When he died, they used to break his wealth, his gold, with axes. He had that much gold. Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, he was one of the companions. He was the sixth one that Imam Ali said to him, بايعني على سنة كتاب الله وسنة رسوله واجتهاد رأيي. He said to him, pay allegiance to me, elect me, and I will rule according to the book of Allah, the tradition of Rasulullah, and my opinion. He said to him, no, you have to follow the seerah of the first two Khalifas. When he built houses, or palaces as they call them in Arabia, min al-jussi wal-ajur, it was those white stones that used to come to them all the way from Persia. Arabs built houses from mud. They didn't know these luxuries. When he died, he had 1,000 heads of cattle, some hundreds of horses. These are companions of Rasulullah. They accumulated so much wealth that they forgot the message. That's why Al-Hussein had to uprise. What did Al-Hussein say when he was departing Mecca? He said, إِنِّي لَمْ أَخْرُجْ أَشِرًا وَلَا بَطِرًا وَلَا ظَالِمًا وَلَا مُفْسِدًا وَإِنَّمَا خَرَجْتُ لِطَلَبِ الْإِصْلَاحِ فِي أُمَّةِ جَدِّي صلى الله عليه وآله أُرِيدُ أَنْ آمُرَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَأَنْهَى عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ. I did not take up arms. I did not start this uprising to make merry, or to be aesthetic over my positions, nor to exercise oppression over people. No, I started this uprising in order to do what? For the sole purpose of performing reform in the ummah of my grandfather. I want to. How do I do reform? How do I do reform? Islam said a very basic principle. Reform should happen every day in our lives, in every moment in our lives. How do I do reform? أريد أن آمر بالمعروف وأنهى عن المنكر. I want to enjoin good and forbid evil. This is how we do reform, brothers and sisters, in our societies. It's very basic, very simple. When we leave it, reform stops, and our societies will continue to decline, as they are these days, unfortunately. As they are these days. Brothers and sisters, it hurts me to say this, but we are, the Muslim nations, the first consumers of pornography. We discussed this, Brother Iftikhar, one day. Yes. It kills me that our society, the highest percentages are Muslim nations. This is the situation that we have reached. Why? We did not change ourselves, and hence our societies did not change. I am very emotional about this. It touches me, it touches you, it touches everyone, every Muslim soul, from every school of thought. So Al-Hussein ibn Ali started, Salamullahi alayhi, started this revolution to do what? To do reform. He did not want to have a victory in battle only, although he was seeking that, despite knowing that he will be martyred. We'll get to this inshallah. But the main purpose was reform. Al-Imam says he was calling the people in Mecca before he departed. أَلَا تَرَوْنَ إِلَى الْحَقِّ لَا يُعْمَلُ بِهِ وَإِلَى الْبَاطِلِ لَا يُتَنَاهَى عَنْهُ. Don't you see that truth is not being enjoined? And that batil, dhulm, oppression is not being forbidden? فَلْيَرْغَبِ الْمُؤْمِنُ فِي لِقَاءِ رَبِّهِ مُحِقًّا. Let the believer wish to meet his Lord when he is on the true path. It's either this or I will meet my Lord on the true path. It's either reform or none. They came to him, they said, we will give you some rule. Right? He said, no. It's either this. To Rasulullah, when they came to him and they said, إِنْ أَرَدْتَ مُلْكًا مَلَّكْنَاكَ عَلَيْنَا. If you wanted to be a king, we'll make you a king. Rasulullah said, Wallahi in a'taytu wa wada'tum ash-shamsa fi yamini wal qamara fi shimali. Wallahi, by Allah, if you put the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left hand, I will not leave this message. Why? It's reform. You cannot do it without this way. It's a painful way, but you have to go through it in order to cure our societies. Sallu ala Muhammad wa Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So Al-Imam Ali, Al-Imam Hussein salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, he knew that this is his path. He knew about this before he even left Mecca. Yes, he was giving a sermon to his companions, and this is very important for us to understand, brothers. On the 10th night of Muharram, inshallah, we will talk about this, how Imam al-Hussein architected this movement of his. But one thing we need to understand, there are some people who say, for example, Heinz Halm, he's a German writer. He wrote a book called Al-Shia, Shia simply, and he said Al-Hussein ibn Ali was a disorganized leader. He did not know how to assemble people, and he couldn't judge the faithfulness of his, of the Kufans and so on and so forth. Al-Hussein ibn Ali told people about his martyrdom before he left Mecca. What is this guy talking about? Don't you read history, or you just become and you just call yourself a historian just like that? You're a professor with all due respect on my head, as we say, yes? But go and read. 2 months before Imam al-Hussein started his movement or reached Karbala, he gave the speech, the sermon that I will be martyred. خط الموت على ابن آدم كما خط القلادة على جيد الفتاة. Death is bound the destiny of Bani Adam, similar to a necklace on the neck of the maiden. كأني بأوصالي تقطعها عسلان الفلوات بين النواويس وكربلاء. As if my flesh is being torn by the walls of the desert between Nawawis and Karbala. فَتَمْلَأُ مِنِّي بُطُونًا وَأَكْرَاشًا. And it will fill its stomach from my meat. Yes? When did Al-Hussein say this? When did he say this? Before he left Mecca. We will talk on the 4th night, inshallah, about the message of the Kufans. But before he even left, before he even left, if you read the message of the Kufans, and by that time when you read it, Al-Hussein should say, I will be victorious, I'm going to some 17, 18, 20,000 strong army, right? Why would he say that? Because that's his message. That is his message. He came as a reformer. He wanted this uprising to continue forever, so that every person who wants to stand up to a despot, to a leader, can relate, can reflect on Imam al-Hussein and his movement. Yeah? He did not want a worldly victory. He did not want that. He wanted a movement that will stay in history forever. That's what Imam al-Hussein said. إِنِّي لَا أَرَى الْمَوْتَ إِلَّا سَعَادَةً. This statement, which is the flag of anybody who wants to start an uprising anywhere and say no to any despot, to any oppressor. إِنِّي لَا أَرَى الْمَوْتَ إِلَّا سَعَادَةً وَالْحَيَاةَ مَعَ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا بَرَمًا. I do not see death except as happiness. Death to me is nothing but happiness. And life and living under tyrants is not but living in hell. To him, to Al-Imam, it was living in hell for him to be living under a tyrant. When he left Mecca, he said, رضا الله رضانا أهل البيت نصبر على بلائه ويوفينا أجور الصابرين. The satisfaction of Allah is the satisfaction of us Ahlul Bayt. Allah will be pleased for our pleasure. وَيُوَفِّيَنَا أُجُورَ الصَّابِرِينَ. He knew he was going to be slain. He told people, I'm going there to get killed in Karbala. People, you need to understand that my message is not about assembling some 20,000 army and go and fighting Bani Umayyah. No, I want to be the revolutionist that will stand against every ruler throughout the human history. It's not just for Bani Umayyah. Bani Umayyah were idiots. They thought they will just destroy Al-Hussein's movements. Only 100 and few odd years later, yes, massive armies marched from Persia towards Damascus. What was their flag? Ya li Tharat al-Hussein. To avenge the death of Abi Abdullah. Hundreds of thousands led by Abu Muslim al-Khurasani. Yes, it was the Abbasids movement. What did they use? They used Abi Abdullah al-Hussein's line. So Al-Imam, when he knew that this revolution has to start, when he learned about the death of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, alayhi la'anullah. Al-Imam, the narrations say, Walid ibn Utbah ibn Abi Sufyan, he was the cousin of Yazid, he was the governor of Medina, and at the same time they had Al-Nu'man ibn Mundhir, the governor of Kufa. Ubaydillah ibn Ziyad was the governor of Basra, and Amr ibn Sa'id ibn al-As was the governor of Mecca. Al-Hawadir al-Arba'a, as they call them, the four provinces in Islam, in Peninsula. And Abu came to Al-Walid from Yazid ibn Muawiyah, la'anatullahi alayhi. He said to him, اعلم يا وليد أن معاوية ibn Abi Sufyan قد مات. Know, O Walid, that Muawiyah has died. He lived a blessing he lived, Muawiyah that is, a blessing and a God-conscious life. Yeah? And he lived for a decreed term, and he was taken back to Allah at an appointed time. Yeah? a firm believer. When you read the speech of Yazid, you will say, MashaAllah, what is this? Who is this? You know, this guy has the highest belief. He has yaqeen, maybe. You know. And then, on a side note, so he could not put this in the official message because there were official messages. On the side note, he revealed his character, his vicious and lowly character. He said to him, اجمع عبد الله بن الزبير الحسين ابن علي and عبد الله ابن عمر وخذ البيع منهم وإن عارضك منهم أحد اضرب عنقه. Summon Al-Husayn ibn Ali and Abdullah ibn Zubayr, yes, and Umar and Abdullah ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab. Summon them and ask them for the oath of allegiance to me. If they refuse, اضرب عنقه, kill them. Walid ibn Utbah, he said, this is crazy. What am I going to do? These three people have the highest status in Islam, especially Al-Husayn. Al-Husayn had the absolute highest status. Talk about this tomorrow night, inshallah, when he arrived in Mecca. What happened? I'm giving you these stories, maybe, hopefully, you will, inshallah, come tomorrow and you know, and share with me these beautiful nights. So he called Marwan ibn al-Hakam. Marwan ibn al-Hakam was his relative, yeah, but they had a conflict between them. He said to him, what should I do? He said to him, send Abdullah ibn Sa'ad ibn Uthman to them and summon them, let them come. So he sent him. When he sent him at a time when it wasn't a time for a public assembly, right? Al-Imam al-Husayn and Abdullah ibn al-Zubayr was sitting in the mosque of Rasulullah, Masjid Rasulullah. This came to them and he said, Al-Amir wants you. Al-Imam said to him, go back to your Amir. You can see this, by the way. People need to read between the lines in history, yeah? So this guy was a messenger of whom? Of the ruler of Medina, a governor. Yep, and you have an ordinary person from a political perspective, Ali Imam Hussein. Yeah, he's saying to him, go, and we will come back to your Amir later. So their Amir does not worth anything to them. Wallahi. And this continued. You know, they continued. If you read history and you see how Ahlul Bayt used to treat those tyrants. You know, the Imam Al-Haadi, one of the I think it was Al-Mu'tasim Al-Abbasi, he said to him, if he comes here, I will bring him down, I will mop the floor with him, I will do this, I will do that. The moment that the Imam steps into his door, he comes to him straight away and, oh Imam, you are so welcome to come to us. Wallahi, you know, this is history. He said to him, go, we'll come back to you later. Abdullah asked him, why do you think he summoned us at a time when it's not a time for a public assembly? He said to him, أظن أن ملكهم قد هلك. I think their tyrant has died, and he wants to call us to ask for allegiance. So he said to him, what are you going to do? What should we do? He said to him, we will go there and see what he wants. Al-Imam went to his family and he asked all of his sons and nephews and Banu Hashim to wear their swords and to put their hands on the swords, and he said, come with me to the palace of Al-Walid ibn Utbah ibn Abi Sufyan. I will go inside. If you hear his voice had risen, storm in. If you had seen me, you know, if you see them trying to kill me, intervene. Otherwise, don't do anything. Just stand in the door. Yeah? So he walked in, Al-Imam. He saw Marwan ibn al-Hakam and Al-Walid bin Utbah. he said to them, because he knew that they had a problem between them, a conflict, he said to them, Alhamdulillah alladhi jama'akum, wastul arhami khayrun min qat'iha. Even to his enemies, this man, wallahi. Even to his enemies, he continues to enjoin his good and what? Forbids evil. يَأْمُرُ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَى عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. In every moment of his life. He said, so Al-Walid gave him, they did not say anything when the Imam said that. It was kind of embarrassing to them. He gave him the letter. He said to him, this is the letter. Al-Imam said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We are all from Allah, and to Allah we shall return. With regard to the oath, O Walid, it would not be suitable for a man in my stature to give you the oath of allegiance in private. اجمع الناس غدا واجمعنا معهم. Call on the people tomorrow, assemble the people tomorrow for the oath of allegiance and call us with them. Yeah? He said to him, it's not, appropriate for a man in my stature. Oh, Walid. And then 10 days, 2 months later, his holy body is on the land of Canberra. Allah, it's just, So, Al-Imam, so he said to him, اذهب برعاية الله. God bless you, O Hussein ibn Ali, go. خير الرأي ما رأيت. You have said the right thing. Marwan ibn al-Hakam, that snake, he stood up and he said, if you leave him, let him go, he will not let you have another opportunity without bloodshed between you. So Al-Imam just looked at him and he said, ويحك نحن أهل بيت النبوة وموضع الرسالة ومختلف الملائكة ويزيد شارب الخمر قاتل النفس المحرمة ومثلي لا يبايع مثله. This flag that continues, مثلي لا يبايع مثله. Everywhere throughout human history, مثلي لا يبايع مثله. مثلي لا يبايع مثله. Yes, so he could not say anything. The Imam walked out, and Marwan ibn al-Hakam, he said to him, "Oh Walid, what have you done? How could you disobey me? I told you, لن يمكنك من نفسه, لن يعطيك مثلها أخرى. He will not give you another opportunity like this ever again." Look at what this is in Maqtal al-Khwarizmi and Maqtal ibn Mukhannaf, or ibn Makhnaf. This is a guy who wrote the Maqtal some 50 years only after the death of Imam Hussein. The very old books that talk. And these are Sunni books, by the way, brothers and sisters. The Maqtal of Imam Hussein is the most detailed event in history, and it was written by the Sunni school of thought to the nth degree. That's why when you read these details, no one is filling the gaps. No one is filling the gaps. Go and read the books themselves. You will see the detail, because they went and they spoke to every person who was in battle, whether it's on Imam Hussein's camp or on the enemy's camp. Anyways. So he said to him, وَيْحَكْ أَشَرْتَ عَلَيْهِ بِذِهَابِ دِينِي وَدُنْيَاي. You are giving me an advice that will result in me losing my life and my afterlife. This is what Al-Walid is saying to Marwan ibn al-Hakam. وَاللَّهِ مَا أَحِبُّ أَنْ أَمْلُكَ الدُّنْيَا بِأَسْرِهَا وَإِنْ قَتَلْتُ حُسَيْنًا. Wallahi, if you give me the pleasures and the wealth of the world, I would not want to take it in reward for killing Hussein. This is what Al-Walid is saying to him. والله ما أظن أحدا يلقى الله بدم الحسين وهو خفيف الميزان. I do not think anybody could face Allah and he carries the burden of the blood of Al-Hussein ibn Ali, and he could get any reward from Allah. At least the guy had some belief in Allah. Yes, Unlike that guy in Damascus who was saying, Layta ashya'i bi badrin shahidu. Yeah? Let my fathers in Badr see me avenging the death of them. Yeah? At least the guy had some decency. Whereas Marwan ibn al-Hakam, he had the audacity to say to him, kill him here, now. And Imam left and went straight to the masjid of Rasul, to the grave of his grandfather. He knew this is the moment. This is the moment that Ali ibn Abi Talib raised him for. This is the moment that Rasulullah raised him for. This is the start of the uprising. This is the start of the revolution. This is it. Al-Hussein ibn Ali now, he has to start. Up until this moment, he could live peacefully with his life. He knew this moment will come, but now the moment had come. And Imam al-Hussein left the house, left the palace of Al-Walid ibn Utbah, and he went to the grave of his grandfather. He said, Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah, salutation to you, O the Messenger of Allah. أنا فرخك وابن فرختك أنا فرخك وابن فرختك. I am your beloved one and the son of your beloved one. وصلتك الذي خلفتني في أمتك. And your son that you have left me as the heir in your ummah. فاشهد عليهم يا نبي الله, O Allah, O Rasulullah, be the witness. أنهم خذلوني ولم يحفظوني, that they neglected me and betrayed me. وهذه شكواي إليك حتى ألقاك. And this is my complaint to you, O Rasulullah, until I see you again. And narrations say, brothers and sisters, that when on the second night, Al-Imam went again for the grave of his grandfather, Rasulullah salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, in Medina. He spent the entire night prostrating, standing, sitting. He was crying throughout the entire night. And he started reciting dua to his Lord. He said, Allahumma inna hadha qabru nabiyyik wa ana ibnu binti nabiyyik. Oh Allah, this is the grave of your messenger and I am the grandson of your messenger. وقد حضرني من الأمر ما أنت أعلم به مني. And you know what has undertaken me, O Lord. Allahumma inni, again, look at Imam al-Hussein, look at him, even in his dua, even when he knows he's starting his revolution, he's re-emphasizing his message. Allahumma inni uhibbu al-ma'ruf wa unkiru al-munkar. Oh Allah, I love good deed. Oh Allah, I love righteousness. And I avoid and I hate lewdness and I hate mischief, O Allah. يا ذا الجلال والإكرام بحق هذا القدر وبحق من فيه إلا اخترت لي ما هو لك رضا. Oh Allah, choose for me what is the right thing for me. Narrations say, brothers and sisters, that Al-Imam, after he kept crying at the grave of Rasulullah, he slept for a little while, and then Rasulullah came to him in his dream. He said, Habibi ya Hussein, oh my beloved, oh Hussein, كأني يراك عن قريب مرملا بدمك. I will see you shortly, O Hussein, smeared with your blood, مذبوحا بأرض كربلاء, killed in the land of Karbala by people from my ummah. وأنت في ذلك عطشان لا تسقى, and you are thirsty and no one would give you water to quench your thirst. وَظَمْآنُ لَا تُرْوَى وَهُمْ, i.e. those people who killed me. وَهُمْ يَرْجُونَ شَفَاعَتِي مَا لَهُمْ لَا أَنَا لَهُمُ اللَّهُ شَفَاعَتِي. And they want my intercession. They want my intercession, O my grandson Hussein. The narrations say, brothers and sisters, Al-Imam walked to his house. He told his family, the family of his brothers, the family of Abi Talib, he told him that this is all my family, this is it. This is the moment. This is the moment that I have to rise. I have to start to rewrite history, oh my relatives, oh my family. The narrations say, brothers and sisters, that this was the harshest night on the family of Rasulullah since the death of Rasulullah. There was a lot of crying on that night. They knew they had to prepare for the movement and for the migration to Mecca and then to Canberra. Narrations say that Al-Hussein started to traverse through the streets of Medina. These are the memories of his childhood. These are the memories of his grandfather. This is where his father used to pray. This is where his brother Al-Imam Al-Hassan used to be. This is where his relatives are. He remembered everything. He was born in that town, remember. That was his town. It was Medina. It was his hometown. Now he has to bid it farewell. He had to leave it. Brothers and sisters say when he was packing his things and they were preparing to leave, one narration say that Al-Imam had one daughter. Her name is Fatima Al-Haadi. She was a sick daughter. They came to him, Al-Imam came to her and he said to her, "Oh daughter, you cannot join me. You cannot come with me. You are too sick to come with me." She said to him, "Oh father, don't leave me here alone. There is no one here for me except for my uncle Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya. There is no one here left with me." And then she insisted on joining them. On the 28th day of Rajab, when Al-Imam left Medina, she jumped on a camel. She fell down because she was too sick. She kept mounting and falling. And Al-Imam called on Salama, "Please take her." Salama took her and she started crying with her. The tears of Salama mixed up with the tears of Fatima bint al-Hussein. Oh brothers and sisters, Fatima bint al-Hussein went back to her home, to an empty home. No one was there, but she was hoping that she could see her family again, only to know 2 months later that she will be an orphan and that she will never be able to see her family again. Assalamu ala al-Hussein wa ala Ali ibn al-Hussein wa ala Al-Haadi al-Hussein. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. اللهم لعن أول ظالمين ظلم حق آل محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابعين له على ذلك. A quick dua, brothers and sisters. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله بفاطمة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها. Oh Allah, grant us to be the true companions of Al-Imam Al-Hussein. Ya Allah, grant us to be one of those who avenge the killing of Al-Imam Al-Hussein. Oh Allah, grant us to be the true representatives of Al-Imam Al-Hussein. Oh Allah, let the revolution of Al-Imam Al-Hussein be reflected in every moment of our lives, in our relationships with each other, with our society, and with our families. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات. تابع اللهم بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات، إنك مجيب الدعوات، إنك غافر الخطيئات، إنك على كل شيء قدير برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصل يا رب على محمد